best we can. Not everyone can get on time or early.
Yeah, it's okay.
They are gonna start the live stream at 6:30, so.
Okay, don't do anything weird up here.
Don't do anything rude. Because you'll be recorded for posterity. So. The live stream will be available in about a week or two.
Oh, okay. I guess that's just a recording then, right?
Yeah, they don't tell me what the address is.
Oh, I guess the term live stream versus just recording.
Yeah. Well, it's not really for us, right? It's for,
Yeah,
for the
That's
rest of the
just
country. Sorry? Yeah. It's a subdued crowd. Usually by this point in time, we've got beach balls.
Well, where's the beer keg? That's what you need. Everyone's feeling the gloomy weather, I guess.
That's gotta be what it is.
Bless you.
Bless you.
So before we get started, are there any kind of things that are on your guys' mind, questions that you're trying to get answered, or things you're curious about? I can kind of make sure to cover them by the end of the session today. Why the heck are you here? Yeah.
Everything already.
I would like to know the relationship, the working relationship between like product managers and product owners.
Okay.
You were supposed to have a relationship?
It's a complicated question. Yeah.
I've been in product design development management for the last 30 years.
Okay.
Music industry, mainly hardware.
Okay.
I wanted to see how I can transition my fundamentals into software.
Okay, so like kind of transitioning your product design from hardware into software?
I'm just wondering if that's something that could be easily done, or you need additional education and understanding of the software. Basically, how much of fundamentals overlap, how much are very strategic and specific to software industry.
Okay, yeah. I have a lot of hardware in my early career and did do software now, so I can definitely speak to that. Yeah.
Patrick, I'd be curious in how your MBA kind of contributed to your move into product management, or if you had started in product management before you got your MBA. Saw that you had an internship, MBA internship in the product management role, so just be curious how that kind of played out.
Definitely cover that. Yeah.
I'm interested in hearing about some of the skills and software platforms other product managers are using in their day-to-day, just to understand where my time.
Cool. Any other ones? That kind of covers a lot of them, or? How many of you guys are product managers today and looking to kind of level up? And okay, so a few, and others are trying to transition. Does that cover it? Kind of two categories. All right, cool. mix of the crew.
That's not a secret. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hi everyone, I'm Bernard. We have, as you guys got checked in, you should have received an email inviting you to our resources here for both the job portal as well as our Slack channel if you're not a member of either. Highly recommended. The job opportunities, this is actually a worldwide opportunities thing, so if you want a job in Indonesia, I've seen a couple there. But you can get a really good idea of what people are looking for. What's kind of interesting to me is to kind of stack these up against some of the classes that we have to offer. Currently we have over 10,000 people who have graduated across 17 different campuses, over 100 cities in the world. As we speak, there are probably about 5 or 6 of these very meetings going on right now. We do offer a number of courses online. The first one, of course, is product management. If you haven't been a product manager, you don't know what that is, you'd like to know what it would like to be, or want to develop the skills on how to be a product manager, and also answer the question, what have you built? You're going to build a class. You're going to build a product in this class, and learn a bunch of skills that you're going to need to be successful as a product manager. As you progress in your career, you may need to actually interact with your engineers instead of just, kind of do things. But it's important to know whether or not these people are telling you, a good estimate for whether something can get done, or whether or not the timing estimates that they give you is reasonable or not. If you have the technical expertise, at least at a first level, to know what your coders are telling you, when you ask them to do something, you should be able to know whether or not they're saying, that, yeah, this can be done, before coffee this afternoon, or if this is a 2-month kind of project. That sort of information is really valuable being the product manager, because part of your job is going to be to set expectations with your users. And knowing how to balance all this is really important. A lot of product managers are also tasked with doing the analysis of all the data that comes back. Now, this is going to be very specific to certain verticals and industries. Some product managers never do data analytics. Some of them, this is all you do. If you are familiar with SQL, if you know how to do machine learning, you're going to have a leg up trying to get into these kinds of jobs. If you don't, but want to know how to do that, this will be the class for you. Digital marketing, we were talking about your MBA earlier. I got my MBA 15 years ago. Well, the world changed a lot in 15 years, and marketing is very different now than it was then. Some of the principles are still the same, but the tools and strategies that you need to be successful with as a digital marketer are very, very different. Once you have a product, how are you going to get it out there? Well, this is the class that you're going to need to help you with that. The other angle that a lot of companies look for in their product managers are people that have US experience. And I actually saw this in a couple of job postings today. They actually wanted UX designers that have been turned into product managers. The main reason for that is because they want people that have a really good feel for what the user experience needs to be. And those are the types of people who then can write good user stories and then be able to translate the new requirements back to the teams. If you don't know how to do that, but you're interested, this will be the class that you're going to want. We also have product leadership. Now, this is a class for experienced product managers looking to gain the next level set of skills to go to the next level in your career. As you become a product manager, one of the first things you notice is that you lead a team of 1, and that's you. Everything that you do is by influence and coffee, lots of coffee. Right, so everything you're going to get done is all with influencing people on getting it done. But you might start getting promoted. And as you get promoted, you might become a senior product manager with other product managers reporting to you. You might make it to the director level. And when that happens, you need to know how to kind of coordinate all your product managers so that it all goes in the same goal. I saw one company, I won't name them, but I saw, I think about 6 or 7 job listings for product managers for various bits of the same web page. You know, for this experience, we want a manager. For this experience, another one. They had 6 or 7 product managers, and they're all going to be reporting up to the product management leadership team. Those people should know how to lead product managers. It's a different group of people than leading engineers. We also do corporate training. So for those of you who are in companies, particularly larger companies like maybe Dell, that want to show the value of your product management team across the corporation. And then also, you know, train the product managers in whatever the latest skills are. And this is a class that we will take and customize for your company and for the specific needs of your teams. So if you have lots of really good PMs that have come up from the UX side but have no analytics, we'll start training you guys on the analytics side. But this is something that we now offer. We can come to you and train you on how to be better PMs. But let's hand it over to Patrick here from Dell, and you're going to talk to us about cornerstones of a great product manager.
Yeah, so thanks you guys for braving the weather and coming out today. This is a pretty full room, so very excited to have y'all here. And this will be pretty informal. Apologize for me being seated. I've got kind of a bum leg from a skiing accident a couple weeks ago, but keep it really fun. So what this session trying to get across is more about like what's that first 90 days of being a product manager look like, and what I think would lead you to be a successful first 90 days, and less about kind of that before product manager formally life. Like we can cover it definitely in Q&A, but more for the subject of this talk, since I know a lot of the resources that Product School puts out is on kind of that early stage. But I'm definitely happy to answer any questions kind of from there, just to guys understand what we're going to cover today. And it's always helpful to kind of understand different people's path into the product management role, because there's never really a real obvious path. There's no, until maybe now, there's not really an education for that, and no undergraduate education in that at least. So I kind of started by just being super interested in technology and loving mechanical things. I was big into dirt bike riding when I was in high school, and I would crash it all the time, and I would always have to fix it, and I just loved learning about how it works and loved putting it back together and buying new parts for it, getting it to go faster, ride better. And that led me to go study mechanical engineering at Georgia Tech. So I did that, and while in school I did a bunch of internships in design and manufacturing engineering, and realized that I wanted to be more on the business side of technology companies, because I really loved seeing things come into existence that were just kind of in people's heads before, but didn't really know what that meant and how to be part of like a different than just a developer or a hardcore engineer. And I love the show How It's Made, if you guys know that show. Just love like everything that you didn't even know existed gets to be made somehow, and I just think that's super fascinating. I like the robotics of it, automation, and follow that passion to work for a company leader in that space called Rockwell Automation, if you're familiar with them. So all kinds of hardware, equipment, sensors, software, all come together to automate the world's factories. And I did that for about 7 years. I did a rotational program, so doing a bunch of different engineering, businessy type roles. I then really kind of cemented to myself that I wanted to be more of a business leader in technology, but didn't have all the skills to right away do that. So I found a role as a project or program manager, depending on how to define that. Did that for about 3 years in various capacities, and then I realized that once the products that I worked on left the factory for the first time, I never saw or thought about them ever again. So I wanted to see what happened to them once they were out and deployed and get closer to the customers who were using them. So I got to do sales for a year and a half. So B2B sales, which is pretty cool. To keep kind of growing my education and being a business leader, I'd always had my eyes set on my MBA. And at that kind of time that I was looking to go back into it, MBA is a great point for anybody, as long as you, to answer your question, like it kind of you get out of it whatever you want to pull out of it. And you can go and study just corporate finance. You can go and study just like human resources type stuff. You can go and do like traditional marketing, going for Procter & Gamble, high-tech stuff. So I chose Texas as a factor of Really great technology place that I might want to live, because a lot of people end up living in the area that they go to grad school. And I took out of it saying I wanted to transition my technology from kind of a traditional hardware, your question, into more of a earlier stage software, do more of like that formal product management role that I had seen and kind of floated around in various capacities in my previous company, and really attack that specifically. So my mentality in school was to go and get as much direct experience as I could. So I took every semester an opportunity to do a different internship. So a couple of startups. My summer internship was fortunately with Google, which was really cool, kind of as a hardware program manager. Still not fully over to what I exactly wanted to do, so I got like some more internships in venture capital and within earlier stage companies as a product manager. So that really helped me kind of move myself towards that specific role. And then I just found a really great fit for me at Dell, where I work on a product that we call Dell Mobile Connect. So it's something that, unless you have a relatively new Dell PC, we're still working on our awareness of it, but you'll be able to do all of your calls and texts and your contacts. And if you have an Apple kind of lifestyle, then you're probably familiar with getting your texts and you can respond that way. So we've kind of taken that to the extreme with iOS and Android and done a lot of cool things with it in the past year and a half, 2 years. So that's generally my my background. And just to answer your question more specifically about like how do you transition from one really area to a different one, if you want to go from hardware and you're a product manager, or if you want to do, you're in technology but you want to shift, or you're doing something else. I like to think of a transition of someone's career into at least something like what I do on like two axes. One axis is your industry that you're in, and another one is the job function that you're in. And you're very unlikely to move both axes at one time. So whatever you can do to kind of move one at a time slowly to get yourself there, it's kind of my path. Going from having done technology, if you ask most people, you'd say making robotics for factories is pretty high tech. And you go talk to somebody making a SaaS product, they would say, no, you do old stuff. That's not high tech. Okay. So how can I prove to you that I can do it? Okay, I'll go do internships, go show that you understand these industries, go show that you can do the job for free. That's not always something that is possible for a lot of people, so I understand that like if you're not in an MBA program, it's not as easy to go and do all those things, but I just think of it as that's the way that I suggest people that want to get into product management who've not done it specifically before, is look for a job as a product manager in the industry that you're in today. That's probably the easiest fit. Maybe it's the company that you're in today. That'd be the most obvious, easiest transition. And if not, then try to find ways to gain experience like guerrilla style and go and find somebody who will take you on as a mentee, whatever it is to move yourself that way. So kind of fast forwarding, I like to kind of think of it. So, hey, you landed your first product manager job, super exciting. Now what the heck do you do? How do you be successful in that? And realizing that this statement is pretty true. PMs didn't exist 10 years ago effectively, so they aren't necessary. To build a product, you probably need a designer, you probably need some engineers. Depending on what that product is, you might need some salespeople, you might need some manufacturing people, you might need some other support people. But a product manager is a role that people can't really identify what it is all the time. It's different everywhere. And some product managers really are a drag on the team, and the team itself probably would operate better without you. But a really amazing product manager can take a team and improve their output 2, 4, 10 times because they do a much better job at these core things that hopefully I'll be able to show you today. And really the first 90 days of your job, I like to think of it in really 3 categories. We call them steps, but they're overlapping, of course. First one being what every person who's in a marketing role, which is product manager effectively is to understand your market. So marketing is broader than just what you see on your Google ad search and what you see on billboards. It's anything to do with the business side of a product is I call marketing. So understand who your customers are, why they're doing certain things, what are you building, and how does that relate to what your customers are asking of you. Second is gaining your team's trust. And as Bernard mentioned, the product manager does everything through influence, and you can only influence if you have trust. So I'll give you some advice on how to really build that in your first few months. And then lastly is really the whole point of what a product manager is, defining and selling this product vision. what is the product, what do you want it to be in a year, 2 years, and then you kind of can move into more narrowly what's like that next release going to look like, or next few releases going to look like. So when you come in, this is something that isn't always, I think, understood, is that nobody comes into your first day and says, hey, welcome to the company. By the way, here's this comprehensive market report that's got everything you need to know about it. Just read this and you don't need to do any research. This absolutely never happens. Somebody might say, here's a piece of data over here, here's a study that was done 3 years ago over there. So even if people did give you a bunch of information, it's really up to you as the owner of a product and like the vision of that product to know what the market is, what's the market trends, and really just have a really good understanding of what that user base and customer base wants and is. So questions to kind of ask yourself or the company or the industry that you're in could be, who is the target market? Like, who are we trying to get to be our users, our customers, or whatever? And why is that the case? Yeah.
Sorry, are these going to be available, the slides?
I believe so, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And within about a week or so,
All right. Great.
they'll be posted.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's fine, and I'll leave my email at the end, and you can always shoot me an email, I'll send them to you.
Cool.
So really understanding like who is that target market. So that could be new moms between 25 and 35 who live in urban cities in America, and that's the case because they'll spend anything on their new kid, and they probably have disposable income. That could be a market that you're targeting, and that's the answer as to why you're doing it. And then like really, who are your existing customers? Even though it's your target market, are your existing customers actually people in like Venezuela who are like coffee farmers? That could be a totally random thing that doesn't fit with what you're actually targeting, so you have to make a decision. Are we targeting the wrong people? Is this a random thing? What should we do with that? And then what are the industry trends? If you're in tech, there's always new things coming out. We were talking about blockchain earlier, so understanding what that is and how it impacts your product, if it does at all, or the impact of computing moving to the cloud, or people's eyes going more towards mobile devices, or whatever the industry trends are, like knowing those things, especially the ones that are relevant to your specific industry or your market. So for me, I need to make sure I know what are the trends in mobile devices. So like what are the OSs being used, what versions are they on, what's the mix of hardware out there in the world, and the mix of kind of people who use iOS versus Android, and what are those features, and what are other people doing. These would be the competition. And I see the biggest mistake that people who are leading companies or starting companies or product managers is they'll make a claim of like, we're the only ones doing this. Well, without you, the life of these people that you're impacting still goes on. So the do nothing competitor is a real competitor. And you need to understand why yours needs to be marketably better than just doing whatever it is those people were already doing at that moment today. So these are some things, and as you'll get this, you can kind of look through these things for inspiration. I won't go through all of them today, but we can kind of touch on certain ones if you have more specific questions at the end. But look at things like industry blogs, news, periodicals. I read different tech news like every day. You don't need to read it every day, but read it a couple times. TechCrunch or different business, like even major business news like Wall Street Journal and New York Times. Or if you have a specific niche, like you are in, there's like SaaS newsletters. There's newsletters and blogs for literally everything. It's like that rule of the internet, right? If it's an imaginative, if it's thought of, it exists. And then you look at your company and product specific data. So look at your company's sales history. Look at the usage data that your product has if you have that today. Are there industry reports that your company's paid for or that you can go buy? These things are wildly expensive, so sometimes it's not accessible, but there's versions of that exist for free as well. And then look at whatever your customers are already telling you. So if you're on a public app store like I am, I get to look at free text reviews. I also ask people for free text feedback. We talk to press, we talk to blogs, we go to trade shows. All these things you can kind of like see that it's a growing set of disparaging pieces of data that there's no way you're going to marry it together into a nice pretty graph. So it's part of your job is to try to synthesize all of that into something in your head that maybe you can't write it down, but you sure as heck should try so that you can define what your market is. And then more on look at your competitors. So like I personally use all of my competitors' apps every so often. I'll go check in and see what they have and how it works. And then talk to people within your company. They likely have deep market knowledge from various aspects. So go and learn what you can from them. So that's kind of doing that first step, and then next will really be gaining your team's trust. And that can be tough when you work in a company where everybody's probably overeducated and overconfident, as they all think that they know better, they think they are better, and who's this new guy who comes in who's just got some words on a page about what he did previously. So you really do have to earn the trust, and you really do have to earn the authority, even though being a product manager theoretically comes with the authority that you believe you should have. And this one's relatively simple, but hard to live up to, I think. And everybody knows what you need to do to go build someone's trust, but not a lot of people are willing to go do it. So literally have a one-on-one meeting with every single person that's like one of your major stakeholders. That could be team members, managers, the person that is like the admin to your VP. Like that can be a super helpful person to know. Whatever it is, like there's unlimited 30-minute slots in your day that should be allocated to things like this, especially early on. And then trying to do it over time is also important.
So what happens when you get pulled onto, say, 16 meetings, and 3 of them are at the same time slot?
I mean, you gotta figure it out. I don't know. But if they're important, if they're all important, then you gotta make a call on which ones are more important, and then make sure everybody knows what your priorities are and why. And then if it's important that you join, then they'll move. If it's not important that you join, then you probably don't need to be staffed on it anyway, and you can just go have more one-on-one meetings. And then I would say always ask a ton of questions and just listen to what people say in those one-on-one things. And I like to even say ask questions over directing, specifically over speaking, because it's pretty easy when you feel like you have this authoritative role to say, please go do this thing, without asking someone's opinion. And these people, like, you're going to talk to one of your lead engineers. They're likely super experienced at what they do, and they're going to look at you with a pretty skeptical eye for a while until you start asking their opinion and say, hey, here's what I know, here's the data that I found out, here's what I'm thinking, like I want to get your opinion on it. And even if you're like 100% sure it's the right thing, doing that gains that person's buy-in to your vision, and then they trust that you have their interests in mind. Because the engineers just want to go build whatever the most important thing is at that point. They don't, honestly, if you're an engineer, I apologize, I'm an engineer too, don't really care what the market is. They just want to go solve the problem that's put in front of them. There's problem-solving machines. So give them the right problem, the best, highest value problem to the company, and they're going to be more than overjoyed to solve it. And just some things to read. This is like a classic book. If you guys haven't read this or heard about this, I highly recommend it. It reads really easily, so it's a light read. It sounds pretty fun and dated, but it's honestly a timeless book on just things you can do if you're trying to learn how to really win friends and influence people. Like it's as simple as the title. And we mentioned it earlier, lots and lots of coffee, whether it's you're a coffee drinker or just buying it because it facilitates conversation, that it can't be more important. And I really can't emphasize enough that you need to listen to people and like really listen to them. Talk to them about not just work, but talk to them about their personal lives. The more you can be their, like a collegial friend, you don't have to be like their actual friend, but make them friendly and be really like mutual trust, then it'll go a long way, and they'll come to you with ideas, they'll come to you with problems that they can solve, and you don't ultimately find stuff later on that comes and bites you in the butt. And then lastly is kind of what that all leads up to is to define and sell that product vision. And I mentioned both of those things because if you don't define it, you can't sell it, and if you don't sell it, it's worth nothing. So kind of like quote I put up here, it's a statement, is a team with no shared vision is doomed to fail. They're going to go build something. They're paid to do something. They're high-achieving people. But if they don't have the right vision, then ultimately things will not, you'll either burn too much money, you burn too much time, and you won't succeed. So make sure that your team knows what success is, and they have a clear path on how to get there. And really, if you only do one thing as a product manager, like forget the tools, forget how to write better user stories, forget everything, honestly. If you can't do this, then don't show up to work at honestly the next week. You really need to make sure you do this really well, and everything else will honestly fall into place. You can learn a new tool, you can get better as processes, you can hire better people, but if you don't have a really clear and strong product vision, then it's just going to be really difficult. And this one's really complex. You really have to figure out what are my key performance indicators? What am I optimizing for? Is it new user growth? Is it star rating? Is it revenue? Is it profit? Is it all these different quantifiable or qualitative goals? It could be, I want, I want to improve, education for people. It's like an ephemeral thing. It's like, I want to make them to be happy. Those can all be goals you have. And like one of them can be, I want my product to really spark joy in people when they use it. And that can be like a design aesthetic thing. It needs to be beautiful. Those are things that you can have, and write them all down. Like if you want to, you should be able to hand somebody who's new to the team, say, here's our like vision statement and why we're doing it and what we're aiming for. And everything we do is going towards those goals. The priorities of which goal comes to the top or which goal comes to the bottom, those definitely shift over time. Like for me, I really needed to work on star ratings because we weren't requesting star ratings, which I learned was an industry practice. So we had like a few angry people giving us really trash reviews. So then I just realized if you go ask people for reviews, you'll get the ones who actually are happy to review it. So star rating went from like 3.1 to 4.1 within like a few months. So that was a #1 priority at that point. And then now with a 4.1, I'm like, I can do things to probably improve that a little higher, but it's no longer as important as this other goal that I have because I can make much more of an impact for the next goal in the next release. And avoid measuring yourself by vanity metrics, I call them. So it's something that sounds good, but actually means nothing. So or at least it means nothing outside of like selling it to your VP to make it sound good, or to yourself. So if it's something like a number of people who are considered active users of Facebook, really they just mean you open the app once per month for 1 millisecond. Is that really an actual metric that they probably use? I consider that a vanity metric. They would probably look at what's the number of people engaged with different aspects, or how many times are they updating their profile, or statuses. Those are the things that create actual value for their company. People who are looking at ads, not just opening the app one time and then closing it. And when you're selling, I like to say always be selling and solicit feedback as well in that vein. And talk to everybody, sell to everybody you get the opportunity to. So if you run into an executive and you get a chance to just say like, hey, thanks for your support. By the way, have you heard about what we're doing next? Have you heard about some of our successes? Those are the things that ultimately kind of build up, and at some point you might be able to use them. And of course, adjust as needed. If you get some feedback from somebody and it's actually meaningful, you definitely need to adjust. And here's some other tools you can use. So for KPIs, there's I think it's kind of funny, called pirate metrics, a way to think about what your product metrics, at least in like a software business, could be. It stands for, the acronym is AARRR, so like R are the metrics. Some naughty heads know what I'm talking about. The link is right here, so you can see them. It links to like a great blog that talks about those metrics. And they're high level enough that you can define what it means for your company, maybe for your product. Maybe not all of them make sense or are high priority, but I think it's worth thinking about a good framework for it because they're simple, they're actionable, and can help guide things. Yeah.
Slightly unrelated question, can you use those metrics for revenue recognition?
Like, you think like accounting revenue recognition, or?
So what happened was they changed the law last year on revenue recognition for software, and it now allows the company individually to select their own metrics for revenue recognition. That could be, any deliverable that you want, they can assign recognition to it.
Yeah, so this isn't, one of the R's is revenue in that metrics model.
Right.
And I think just however you define revenue, if it's just like, as soon as we get someone to sign up and they pay up front for a year-long SaaS product, if that's how you want to consider revenue, I would say accounting is always different than like actually running a business. But however I think you want to run it, I don't see it affecting how somebody would choose to account for revenue in their company though, with these metrics. But it would impact how you account for revenue in your company would impact how you would measure your product and adjust accordingly.
Okay, yeah, I guess it depends on the viewpoint. But what I was thinking is that the product management team can influence the accounting team and say, this is what we believe the important metrics are.
Yeah, I haven't come across that, but that's very valid. I think that's definitely exploring.
Yeah, I came across that a couple of weeks ago, so.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, they are asking for what are the major and important metrics. And so to be able to articulate that to the finance team becomes important.
Interesting. So it goes both ways. You can always influence the measurement of your own product too. I think that's obviously part of it too. You can define what success ought to be for each metric and then go and sell that too. That's cool. When you're looking for, like, you're thinking product vision, you just talked about a lot of things. How do I formulate that? This is a simple kind of template you can use. It's on the screen here, so you can read through that, just how to really think about what a vision statement ought to be, and then formulate it all on your own. You can use, like within my group, we'll use kind of product tenants, we call them. So it's like, what are the main kind of bullet pointed things that you want this product to achieve? You know, they don't have to be specific feature type things, that they actually ought not to be. But then you can do it like this if you want more of a kind of a nice paragraph, or any way that makes sense for you and your ability to sell that vision is what's most important, not really like the format of it. And then user stories are something for those not familiar. It's just a way to write out a feature request. So it's a good way to always consider what the user is, not just build stuff for no real purpose other than personal gain, personal satisfaction, I should say. So always looking at, as a, say, like whoever you're trying to target or whoever's going to use this feature, could be an internal tool or it could be for a customer. I want to, action that they want to achieve so that you get the result. So for my product, so as a Dell PC customer, I want to be able to get my calls and texts through my PC while my phone's in my pocket so that I'm not distracted every time my phone bings, but I also don't miss any important communication. That could be like a specific, that's a pretty big user story, but that would be an example of one you could use. And then there's a link to examples of how you can better craft user stories, if you're so inclined. So, congrats. Now we're going to do an exercise. So for the next kind of 15 minutes or so, if you guys have, all of you have pen and paper or something to kind of take notes with, we're all going to do something together. So we'll pair up in twos, but to start, everyone, just imagine you just got hired at whatever company you're really most interested in, or you just want to go through this exercise with, as a product manager. And you can use any of these, recently IPO'd high-profile companies as for inspiration, or whatever it is you want to do, it doesn't matter. So take a second to think about that, gather yourself, and then we'll kind of go through a quick, fun little exercise. Kind of help you realize what we're talking about, and then put it into some kind of concrete action. And make a friend.
Are the pairs working the same?
No, pairs will work. Everybody works on their own individual thing. Your pair will become a parent soon. Yeah, it's clarifier. Individually pick your own company, and you're going to use your partner as kind of part of the process that we're going to go through. So you don't have to pair up and make your own decision. And just in case you were familiar, Airbnb, Spotify, Lyft, Dropbox, and Snapchat. All right, anybody not have a partner, not have a company that you just imaginarily got hired into? We can be partners.
Oh, wait, no, but actually.
Oh yeah, there we go. All right, cool. So next 5 minutes, I want you guys pick who starts first, but I want you to imagine that you are you're your product manager, and the person that you're talking to is a market expert in whatever area that you are in. So I want you to interview them for just 5 minutes, or maybe we'll call it 3 minutes, make it quick, and just gain whatever information that person might have about the industry that you're in. If you need some explanation, then take a few seconds to do it. And go. All right, switch. All right, cool. So I guess now we turn around and you yeah, so do it for your, like, he did it for his product, and then you do it for your product to him.
They're really good.
I keep on writing
All right. Thank you for doing that fun exercise with me. Take the next couple of minutes and by yourself, I want you to write your own kind of two-part document. I want you to have a short couple of statements that says like, what is the market? What are some trends? And who are the competitors? Just kind of hit those 3 points about the market. And then craft yourself craft for your product that you chose, a vision statement. I'll go back to that template you can use as an example. And at the end, we'll do that for about 5 minutes. And then at the end, you guys will each have to sell your counterpart on that vision statement and make sure you wrap up, included in that, the market and things about what that person said so you can gain their trust, all those kind of things. You gotta sell it back to them. And 5 minutes from now. Yeah. All right, if you're not quite yet ready, you have 30 seconds left to try to wrap it up, and then you'll be selling it to your counterpart. Okay, now if you guys haven't already, if you already were ahead of the game, great. But if not, then take the next, say, 2 minutes and one person sell that product vision to the other one. So you're trying to sell them on and get their kind of buy-in that this is the best vision, it's an amazing vision. They'd be happy to either buy or join the team that's building it. So go 2 minutes, and then we'll switch.
Although I feel like I grabbed it by the time. Alright, this is sort of what I got. But I was kind of like finishing that. But I was gonna say, like, today, what's funny is, like, I was totally influenced by, you know, I was thinking about interviews around like, not necessarily the podcast, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe I learned all my you know, obviously so they might not necessarily even think about
All right, switch.
Alright, so I am in this role where Spotify would have some sort of it would also suggest when there's sales going on when there's content creators there, podcasters, they're speaking to your users, and then further drive into technology you have I don't actually work for records, so yeah, we work with Spotify all the time, and I think it's great.
Okay, that was 2 minutes. You guys wrap it up in the next couple of seconds. Cool. Thank you guys for playing my little game. That was hopefully that was engaging, and you got some interesting thoughts out there. You kind of picked up on the process of kind of that first 90 days of being a full-time product manager, what that might kind of culminate into. And I'd love to see if we have any brave souls who are willing to try and share their market analysis and product vision with the room.
I'm just curious, actually. How often do you run into product managers that come up with this great vision on day one and are so focused on that vision that they'll pitch it, and get this feedback, and you sit with them a month later and they're still in the same vision that they pitched to you 30 days ago?
I'll cover that after our hopefully brave soul, unless you are the one.
Sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
All right,
So
great.
I did Spotify.
Mind standing up for everybody?
Yeah, sure. Hey everybody, I'm Austin. We're going to talk about Spotify. So today, people want access to content, whether art or expert voices at all times. In the past, they've been required to download that content or rely on videos, essentially their eyes, and that's unacceptable because it excludes all times when you need your eyes, like walking or driving. So we envision a world where all content is accessible to anyone at any time. And so we're bringing this to the world by democratizing and simplifying audio streaming.
Very great. That was awesome. Thank you. Let's hear one more at least.
Alright.
Okay.
I chose Meetup.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Alright, so
Would you
market
mind
analysis.
standing up for everybody?
Market analysis, I'm Jeff, by the way. Market analysis is professionals who are actively engaged in their profession, that are seeking ways to connect with like-minded professionals, but in direct contact settings. I think contact with Facebook or LinkedIn groups that have been oversaturated with sales pitches is a turnout for some of these folks. So the vision is to take the sales out of the networking and put the shared knowledge back in. Allow professionals to build networks in low-pressure, shared experience environments, and remove the classroom feel while allowing presenters to facilitate a real interactive discussion.
Thank you. I'll give it up for our two brave souls. Thank you guys. So just to kind of speed us through everything, thank you for doing that and for people for sharing. I know it's always a little nerve-wracking. That's kind of sometimes how things go being a product manager. You meet somebody in the hallway and they're like, hey, sell me what you're doing again. And you got to all of a sudden be like, oh, okay, I got to be ready to do this. So that also is really nerve-wracking. Usually has higher stakes than in this classroom. So just going through it again, really making sure that in that first period of time, really making sure that you spend a ton of time doing this. Understanding your market, building trust with your team so that you can define and sell the best product vision possible. And 4 questions, I'll leave you with a quote from this guy. If you don't know him, you should look him up. He's like an icon in Silicon Valley. He wrote a famous blog post back in the late 90s called Good Product Manager, Bad Product Manager. If you haven't found that before, look it up. This is a quote from it. So it says, a good product manager is the CEO of the product. A good product manager takes full responsibility and measures themselves in terms of the success of the product. And then more importantly, they're responsible for the right product and time and all that entails. Bad product managers have lots of excuses. And that's really showing you that you are responsible for it, although you don't always have the ultimate authority. You have to do all through influence. But don't let only the fact that you are able to influence be your excuse, whether it be funding, staffing, the right people, whatever. It's still your job, and to be successful, you have to get it done with whatever you have. So that's it, and I know we had a few questions, so but before I jump into those ones, are there any kind of burning questions or things that you really kind of captured from today you want to share with the class? Yeah?
Okay, so you mentioned that product vision is like the most important thing, and I've seen a lot of stuff about people going through like business model canvases and trying to like craft that vision. I'm just wondering, is this a thing that is sort of continuously changed and refined and updated like on a weekly basis, or is this a thing where you kind of do it up front and then like every quarter come back to it and pivot?
Yeah, definitely always evolving. Question for Bacon here is the product vision something you kind of do day one, never update, you're updating constantly like every week or some period? I would say that you definitely need to make sure you have a coherent message at day one, so you got to rally people around it and get probably people and funding and whatever else you need. But then once you start moving, you'll find out that whatever it is you said, no matter if you're Mark Zuckerberg or anybody else, whatever you started with is wrong, but it's like the best first step. So constantly evolving that vision and based on the competition, industry trends, whatever's happening, the size of your team, what kind of things you're able to do. It doesn't mean, I would say weekly would be overkill, but regularly, every month, every quarter, every year, depending on kind of the maturity of your market and your industry, constantly refining it as it goes. And to your question, like people who are constantly saying the same vision over and over for months and you just keep hearing them, people have some thick heads, I feel like, if they're constantly getting feedback and not changing. So if you're going to give them feedback, it's how do you give feedback to somebody who's just like really not willing to hear it? Just try to be like sensitive to that and encourage them to think back to like what are the KPIs of the group that they're in? What's important to the business? What do they think that like the executives who they're talking to actually care about? And encourage them to craft that vision as it fills a hole in the KPIs that your business is measured on.
So what would you do if that thicker individual happens to be the CEO?
Yeah, it's even more tough. I guess you can either try to be really, really patient and hope that they listen, or find out that your company got out of funding and you're out of a job anyway. So if it's something you're trying to do that's new and you're convinced that it's important, like the product that I work on was my boss's. He was just like constantly pounding the pavement with this vision that we need to have like phone and PC integration for a while, and it was pretty obvious people had asked for it, but only until like it kind of married with some other things that happened that he was able to say like, oh, because that happened, now I can really go back to these people and like convince them with a data point that they care about. It was like some market research and some sales data, and then you can like kind of find that. That'd be one area where if you're like really struggling to find that kind of the hole that you're trying to fill, keep trying is the only kind of time that it would be relevant to keep going, but always trying to find what is the hole that I can fill with this product and this vision, because you're selling it to like someone's got to buy it, someone's funding you to go build it, so it needs to like be an obvious hole that you're filling, but it's not easy, of course. Yeah.
In your daily market research, I'd be curious to know just a little bit more about how much time you're doing market research, what time of the day you're doing it, and what kind of your goals are when you're reviewing that information.
Yeah, so it depends on the kind of the type of research that you're looking to get, and that will change. The period in which you gather it will change depending on what type of research you're looking at. So if it's like larger industry research, so I'll use like PC sales data, that's largely not changing more than once every 6 months or a year, generally. And there's usually somebody, I'm fortunate that you're in a big company and someone kind of like publishes some report that's kind of high level what you can read from that. So you kind of capture that whenever you're available, when you kind of get it, or when, it's like, hey, I haven't looked into PC sales data in a while, let me go look at that to see how if that changes anything. If it's, what are my users saying about my product now? That's like I have an alert on my phone every time somebody gives me a 1 or 2 star review. Like that's how hypersensitive I am to what people are saying. And we try to make sure we adjust for like as quick as we can if it's important enough to adjust. And then other things though, if it's like, hey, a new company came in, they're competing with us, how does that change? That's your market. That's kind of just like keeping up with every so often, every quarter, I would say, if you're gonna pick a time period to assess like what's your competitive landscape. Yes, sir.
Okay, appreciate what you're saying about wanting to read all those bad reviews, but the truth is people more likely to complain, review than they are likely to praise. So if you look at, positive and negative reviews as being statistically independent samples
Mhm.
of consumers? They're not.
Oh, for sure.
They're absolutely not. So how do you account for that bias in human behavior, that they're more likely to criticize than they are to praise?
Yeah, it's a fair question, and I think a struggle for just people in general is that like negative things stand out like 10 times more relevant in your mind than a positive thing. So I view all the feedback as just different data points of shifting weight depending on how I'm feeling. It's kind of a gut thing, I think, for me. So I look at, there's certain things that are like common themes. Like if you're seeing a common theme in, hey, this feature isn't working, or I can't get this thing to work, and here's some information. If you're kind of like taking it in and you like start to pick up on trends or themes that are in those reviews, positive and negative, then that's like really when I start to make adjustments in my product if I need to. If it's like a one-off thing where like somebody with a very specific configuration of their system is having an issue, I don't know if that's a user issue, if it's they dropped their phone in the toilet and that's why I can't do it, or if it's some other thing. So I don't attach any weight to an individual negative review or positive review, but I try to look at an aggregate. If that helps answer your question. Me personally though, but other people have different kind of
But you
weights.
don't
they-
try to be all things to all people, try to please everybody.
That's the only way you'll fail, yeah. That's why I think it's really important to know who your market is, and if you have a bad reviewer that's somebody who's like not even in your core market, but they're reviewing you really poorly, it doesn't work for me, I don't understand it, you're like, that's cool, I'm not building it for you. Yes, sir.
So within like your team and the company, and also within the general customers, would you say like is consensus always a good thing? And in the case that say a lead engineer or someone disagrees with your product vision, how would you deal with that, or how would you either convince an engineer to your view, or how would you deal with that?
Yeah, that's every release you get people that have people that are really passionate about the product, hopefully, on your team, and they have all kinds of cool ideas. And usually within a group of people who are talented and passionate, you'll have no shortage of cool ideas. The hard part is to choose the right and the best ideas. And like I think every time that I talk to my engineering team, they're like brilliant at coming up with all these like sci-fi things, and then somehow making it a reality, and they present it to me like, we should do this, we should do it just like this. And I'm like, whoa, cool, thanks. And then I have to kind of, I'm like, no way I'm ever going to put that out, I have to kind of go back to what those core like vision statements, those KPIs, and then if it's like something that maybe we should do in the future, but right now it's not a high priority, I just use that's cool. Unfortunately, I don't think that's as high a priority as these other things, and here's why. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, that kind of wins every time.
So you use data a lot in order to drive your decisions?
Oh yeah, and it could be qualitative data. Like the team knows that we have this product gap that we've been trying to build for a while but never been able to do it because of other random things keep popping in higher priority. And then somebody comes in with a feature that could be cool, you can kind of like qualitatively know that it's going to only affect a small subset of your customers, then like the impact is not that great, although maybe a few customers really love it. The engineers who are building it probably really love it. But then the larger base doesn't really like it. You can say, well, this other feature impacts like almost everybody, and it's really challenging to build. That's why we haven't done it yet. Like I still think that this hard but high priority thing is still high priority. Let's put that one on the laundry list of things we want to build, and like save all the documentation that you can around that idea so you can come back to it if ever at some point it comes up. So don't ever shut somebody down. Just tell them, as like, what works for me is like, that's cool, not as high priority as other things right now. Let's put it on the list and deprioritize it, and that usually works.
Pat,
Sure.
is your product something that you sell, or is it incorporated as part of another product?
So mine doesn't generate direct revenue. Yeah, we have it as like a extra feature, as like a better touchpad, for example. So it's when I talk about those pirate metrics, revenue isn't one that I can like directly tie to. So my KPIs personally are how many users, like from the number of PCs that are like turned on with my software pre-installed, how does that translate into actual usage? So how many of them actually pair their phone to the PC, and then how many of them I consider like a monthly active user, so they're actually doing some action once a month, and kind of the rate of starting to finishing the pairing process is like a really important metric for me. So that's how I measure. Does that answer your question?
Just a quick follow-up, what do you do to stimulate users to start using it?
Yeah, so I consider like customer awareness. So if your problem is that you have a big discrepancy from like when they open it to when they pair, which I kind of do because it's a complicated, unfortunately, pairing process, then I work really hard on making that as easy as I can. As successful, that success rate is something that I closely watch every release. And then if I can get that rate where you open it to pair it really good, then I need to get more people to open it. So then what can I do on the customer awareness piece? Is it traditional marketing? Do I need to have like pop-ups on the PC itself? Do I need the first screen that people see to just be like, I get it in 5 seconds or 2 seconds instead of having to watch a video or read something? That's definitely the soft side of marketing. It's how do you create. I try to push on every avenue I have to create more awareness.
Is this a free product?
It is. It comes included on all of our Dell PCs now, yeah, for the past year and a half.
So what if you have an older PC, can you download it?
Currently not today, and the answer is because it's like actually like a full integration between like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and it relies on a lot of, the kind of foundation of it is a ton of testing we've done and troubleshooting, so we're trying to find a way to release it to everybody on the Dell, like who has a Dell, but we're currently unable to do it. Yeah, no, you had your hand up earlier.
So how do you prioritize between different features? Like I'm an engineer and I'm aspiring product manager, and I see that like these days security features are also like important. Like let's say if I find like a bug in my product which has like a mediocre, critical vulnerability score at the same time, I also need to push in a new feature. So how do you prioritize between these two things, like in general? Because the security is important at the same time, giving new features to your customers is also important. So how do you prioritize?
Yeah, I look at bugs with we use like P1, 2, 3. I don't know if you guys have different priority levels. So like 1 is like, it affects like everybody, we gotta fix it right now. 2 being like, we should probably fix this in the next available release. And then 3 being, let's fix it if we get around to it. If there's a P1 bug, we fix it at the next release. Like have to do it. Even if it comes in like a intermediate release, if it's super, super important, like P0. And then P2s kind of just get in as it's kind of a negotiation. We might be already focusing a lot on one area, so let's make sure we build in those bugs. Or if we just have like a lot of technical debt that are like things are pretty old, we have some requirements on how old bugs can really live in our group. So, or we kind of close them and disposition them. So let's like make sure we get those in. So it's a negotiation every release. You have to kind of look at your bug list. That's a fair question though. Someone's like, you're saying this is an important bug. If someone doesn't agree with you, then you can debate on why. And maybe it's not a P1, maybe it's a P2 for some reason that you didn't understand. And maybe you can convince the guy that it's not a P2, it's a P1. That's, yeah. Yes, sir.
What is your typical development cycle in time for new products?
So I would say if you're a pure like web software product, then you probably release a new version every 2 to 4 weeks. For my product, we do it every 3 or 4 months because we do a ton of engineering testing or hardware testing. And it just depends on kind of what your team likes and what your customers kind of expect.
And to follow up that, how big is the new normal size of the team you work with as far as engineers, developers, and
I'd say like every team is going to be different just because of the organization, but I'd say like if you look at what people write up about effective teams, it'll probably be a team of like 8 to 15 people, including the product manager, and like some people that manage the process type stuff, like a product owner. I'll talk about that question. I know somebody had product manager, product owner. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of research out there. If you search like agile Scrum teams,
right,
you'll get people who talk a lot about what they believe is the ideal mix and number of people.
Yeah. My question was around the market one. So if you have a lot of products which don't really have any precedent, and the industry would fall under is kind of debatable as well. So for these kind of products, what is a good way to get an idea of the market? So like what are a couple of good ways you think?
Well, if you're building something that's relatively new, then it sounds like your biggest competitor is like the do nothing, like just business as is, right? So, but you do have target people you're trying to sell to, and they likely, and if you're struggling to like pick what my market is, then your target audience is too wide. You should probably try to narrow it down to something that you can more easily define, or at least like, yeah, something we can easily define. So I would say if you're having a hard time defining what your market is, like industry type, think more about the people that you're trying to serve and what things they're trying to accomplish. Maybe it's cross industry, but it's like every person that is a mechanic, like fixes things by hand. would use it. That could span oil services, car assembly plants, buildings here, but that's your market is like mechanics for large scale operations. Something that anybody's curious about, sounds like you are at least, is I think an MBA will give you great fundamentals in certain business areas, like fundamentals of product marketing, fundamentals of finance, accounting. I think those are really important to know because you can easily understand like why decisions are being made outside of your little realm. And when you're in there, I personally took a lot of classes in, like I focused on high-tech marketing, was like kind of like they had a group of classes that they considered helpful in that. I took a lot of practicum type stuff, so I was able to join a practicum group that focused on early stage companies and venture capital. So that's where I got to partner with different companies, and we like to like listen from people in industry. And so most MBA programs are largely choose your own adventure, and they give you some kind of guidelines, some maps for those that want to be more focused or kind of traditional. And so getting an MBA and going and being a high-tech product manager is something that people are trying to do, but there's not many schools that can like give you like, hey, here's a map with decent amount of success. If you wanted to become an investment banker or a consultant, those are like tried and true highways that you can go and do. Just do the work and you'll likely get the job. Everything else is pretty choose your own adventure-y.
Sounds about right.
Thanks for coming. So last question, I think it was a question I said I would answer, 2 questions. Product managers and product owners. I think you asked that one, right? And that's, people use those terms interchangeably. People use project manager, program manager, product owner, product manager, marketing, all to define the same role. Because it's a nebulous role, people assign it to different things. So I would say traditionally a product owner would be more focused on the process of the Scrum and Agile thing that, like the team, where they're like deep into like the day-to-day development. And a product manager, if there's both in an organization, would be more on the like the product market, the vision, the higher level stuff, kind of like a one level abstracted up from like the day-to-day, every 2-week release process. And there's a question on skills and platforms. I included a few things in there, but I'd say industry standard type stuff. If you can understand what like Jira is, that's a huge tool. But honestly, any tool that you find is not going to be that difficult to understand. It's just going to be a way to organize data. But look into fundamentals of like Agile and Scrum if you're interested in learning more about, for software specifically, about that kind of stuff. And some of the resources that I included too can hopefully give you fundamentals. Any last questions?
I was just curious how you would describe your product's vision statement.
Yeah, so I think ever since smartphones existed, we are constantly managing 2 devices when we're at our PCs. So you have our PC, you came to probably accomplish something pretty important, and your phone is constantly distracting you from text calls from your significant other, from work, or maybe Kylie Jenner posted a new Instagram. You don't know what it is until you go look at it, and then if you're like me, you get drawn into it for 5 minutes and distracts you from what you came to your PC for. So we want to integrate the 2 devices together so you stay focused on whatever you came to your PC for. And there was one other hand. Question, thoughts? Oh yeah, sure.
Within when you were starting, were there any kind of, not mistakes, but things that you found yourself doing when you first started out on the role that you kind of wish you would have done differently?
Yeah, what kind of mistakes? I think it's easy to become pretty bullheaded, at least for me, to be more like to push people beyond where they would normally go. I think that's like a really fine line you have to walk, because it's really helpful to be the product leader and to like push people to always be better. Like say you're happy but not satisfied. That from my experience, like can grind on people, and it comes back and bites you in weird ways. So doing more on the gaining the trust stuff up front. Thank you guys for coming. This was fun for me. I hope it was fun for you. And you can reach me at this email anytime. I'll try and respond timely.
A couple slides left. We do have some upcoming courses with a few spots left. These are the product management classes.
Thank you.
We have a couple spots left in the online data analytics class.
Very understandable.
Digital marketing class.
Thank you. I tried.
And thank you all for coming.
You know, visions that what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
But it wasn't clear.
I appreciate that.
So definitely go
Very,
away.
very,
Okay.
Very, very
still my best friend.
Please do.
I,
It's my first time giving this, so. Not my first time speaking at things like this, but first time on this topic that I speak. Thank you.
I've been meeting since '99, so like
It looks like
No, if you want to give me a part-time job and they'll pay me to do it.
yeah,
That part's all important.
I do like to do some experience.
Okay, yeah.
I look at cars.
Okay.
I like to take them apart for the same reason you do.
Yeah.
To understand how they work.
Yeah.
I like to upgrade things. Do that.
Yeah, I saw cars last year.
Yeah.
But he doesn't bring Tim Bresco to Atlanta.
Can we connect on LinkedIn? Maybe
Yeah.
have coffee.
Yeah.
Not as much as I used to,
I have a
but I
lot of
still
friends
do.
out there. I've applied for these jobs.
Okay.
I have some friends that are really deep. in
Probably
streaming.
like
I'll go to
where I'm
like a
coming
good
from
show.
right now is project management.
Considering during
Okay.
the barbecue, I went to Science
Okay.
last year.
And it's
We
been
call those program managers.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like
It's a great role.
It is great.
Yeah, Desert Heart to be cool. My
I'm
buddy's
great
looking
into
for some
friends.
friends.
Who's that job?
That's a parachute.
yeah, no, I've used a few times in the past, and it has been like when I first got here, I was like,
Well, if there's one that's interesting, sure.
I see you took a big hit last year.
I was a program manager for 3 years, and I really enjoy. I found for myself when I went into sales, I enjoyed the process of like learning how that works and like talking to customers. But I really love being part of the project development process.
Sucks in the same way.
And I always felt like as a project program manager that I never really got to say like what we should do and why we should do it. It was just like here's the thing, get it done.
I literally had people go in like,
Yeah, and I absolutely love the role. And anybody who like thinks that they're like interested in it, not everybody does. Because it can be like a weird role with a lot of like really a lot of responsibility. But if you really love like figuring out what you want and finding a way to get it to them, that's another role that I would like to have.
You know, before, we didn't have the system
yeah, and I have been doing mostly house but
Yeah,
they were
or something like VP or something.
right, and the marketing guys, they were the
I would
rackets.
say things are a little bit more like,
You know, talk to these people, see what they think, and come back to me.
In certain industries that can work, like if you're building like complex multi-year projects, like you kind of have to figure it out.
Or if you're like really in a niche, you really don't have competition, you're doing something.
Or the engineers like totally know.
Oh yeah, they're creating technology. There's nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, I really only know
And it's gonna be threatened by technology. And that's the way it goes. You know, but that has changed so much now with the software.
Yeah.
like,
It's really hard to radically.
Please look me up.
I'll look you up, send you
I'm
an
in, like,
invite.
in the invite has my LinkedIn profile, so just reach out to me. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Quick question. I want to think about
That's fine.
hardware for the street.
Sure.
Cars, amplifiers,
I had a terrible sit for that.
just because this is staged and everything, not even I've been here for 12 years now, there's been a work here about it.
Okay.
And we're just gonna collect everything.
Okay.
It's in transition, this again,
Consolidating and changing.
But what is, and then I go there and it's happening like, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah, I think generally for kind of role security department,
Right now I'm in the product manager role, product and project, I've been, sales and marketing.
yeah, so you've done all that kind of stuff.
Keep us small teams where
I'd say generally, product manager roles are like a success in finance is largely based on your success in networking.
Oh, you're saying like
And if you, if you like really want to find like, yeah, you know, industry experience in music, you usually like deliver the hell out of it.
Of course.
Or if it's, you want to say like, I've got all this experience in building like hardware, and then like find out who's doing that.
Yeah, so,
And then you're most interested in, and then like see if it's actually go do all the stuff like go into the hardware networking like we're doing right now, and you'll find out which ones are like that spark and then you're interested. Or if you see roles that I do like tons of LinkedIn stuff on LinkedIn radio.
Yeah,
It's like amazing. So you can like stalk the hell out of you. Please reach out. Like
I did. I reached out to real name because I got feedback.
cool. So then you can, if you see somebody that, if you want to chat with us as well, if you see somebody that you want to meet